We are in Parsha Yitro, and I acknowledge and honor Lori for reminding me that I did not turn the record on. So here we are, and the theme of today is honor. So Yitro, Moses's father-in-law, Jethro, he's the first word of the portion, and so it's named after him, this section of the Hebrew Bible that's read by Jews all over the world this week and culminating on in Saturday. And it already starts there, this theme of honoring, because Moses honors his father-in-law and listens to him because his father-in-law sees him after he's led all of the Israelites out of Exodus away from slavery, and he's the head honcho. So everybody's coming to him to make judgments, to decide what they should do. And he's exhausted. And his father-in-law says, you need to set some people up underneath you. You shouldn't be the only person that people come to. You basically need to set up some judges. This is kind of the beginning of Jewish law and the understanding that people need mediators when there are disputes. And so that happens, and Moses is not only honoring his father-in-law, Jethro, but he's being reminded to honor his own body and his own stamina and to not push himself so much. And so there's a couple of places where it shows up. And then we have the actual 10 commandments or 10 utterances. And one of them, which you probably know, is to honor your mother and father. So that word is actually said in there, kavod, honor. Kavod is the Hebrew word. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that might mean in a second. And as I reflected over all the commandments, maybe they're all about honoring. So even the first one, which is, I am Yud He Vav He, the ground of all being. That is, it starts with the word I, the honoring of the I, and the honoring that we are all connected to one another, and we're all part of this divine inspiration. But don't make false statements. Don't steal. Don't rest on the Sabbath. Take some time to rest. Honor your parents, which I said. Don't murder. Don't be adulterous. Don't steal. Don't lie. And the last one, don't covet your neighbor's stuff, his possessions, her possessions. And so we could look at all of the commandments in that view of they're about honor. And so I first want to start with the sense of what it means to do a land acknowledgement, even though I do something very, very brief here. And I say that I live on Rametush Ohlone land, of which there are a couple of descendants, but most of the indigenous people in this area were completely wiped out, either through disease or colonization practices. And we're waking up to the fact that much of the history of people who were here before European colonists came to this country has really not been voiced, and their not only their struggles and their suffering, but their continued oppression. And so that's one of the reasons why people do land acknowledgements. The first time I ever ran into this, I was at a conference in Canada, and it is, I think it might be Canadian law that wherever you are, you start with an acknowledgement of the land that you are on and the ancestral people that are there. Australia, I believe, does it too. And having been in conferences or in places, my mom and I went a few years ago. Can't remember now. Time is kind of strange in this pandemic. I think it was like 3 years ago. We went and had a tour with a Hopi guide and went to Hopi land outside of Sedona. And the connection to the land and the ancestry, even though the Hopi people had moved around, the place that they are now, their reservation, is a place that they've been for hundreds of years. And so there are these protocols that I don't want to say protocols. That's what we do. We are trying to do protocols, but in the Hopi nation and in indigenous cultures, there is the acknowledgement of the ancestors and the land of the ancestry, and that real deep connection to history. And so we have an opportunity to kind of right past wrongs by doing land acknowledgement and honoring the indigenous people of where we currently live. Let's see. I think that's all I want to say about that. And then I want to move to what Judaism says about honoring at least one piece of it. So I may have talked about this a little bit in the past. I think we're on week 38 or 39 of these meditations, but Judaism has a stream called Musar, which is soul work or Jewish ethics, and the idea is that you look at different traits of being a human and you work on a trait at a time for a few weeks in a variety of ways. It's been around for hundreds of years, making a big resurgence in the last 15 to 20 years. So it's making its way out of traditional Orthodox Judaism and into liberal Judaism and being taken up by Jews and non-Jews alike, because it's very concrete. Oh, let me look at this trait. How's this showing up in my life? And so the understanding of what it means to honor is to look at how we relate to other and to ourselves. So how do we honor the land? How do we relate to the land? How do we relate to another being? Or how do we relate to ourselves as a being? And this weaves in that thread that I love to talk about and that we are made B'Tselem Yah or B'Tselem Elohim. We are made in the image of the divine. Not only me, but you and you and you and you and you and everybody that we can think of and every creature that we can think of. And so what does it mean to then recognize and honor the divinity in someone or some other creation and get past the shell? My colleague and friend Ellen Marinis, who's written a lot about Musar and is one of the people credited with bringing it back to liberal Judaism, talks about how it's looking at the present instead of the wrapping. So the wrapping is what we look like and what we say and what our politics are, but the present inside at that level, we're all the same. We're all made B'Tselem Yah. We're all made in the image of the divine. However, why do we even have to talk about this? It's because this is challenging. We forget we're in something with someone and we forget that they're made in the image of the divine. We're in a challenge with ourselves over behavior that we wish we could change and we keep doing. And so we judge ourselves. So it's a natural human inclination, at least when you're beyond being like a little baby. It's a natural human inclination to judge. And so we get an opportunity to look at that and to look at how we're not honoring ourselves or not honoring the other. And then we can make change. We can change the way that we are. So Rabbi Hillel, who many know, a big presence in the Jewish Talmud, he says, don't judge another until you have stood in his or her, I'll add, or their place. And that may sound familiar to a Native American proverb, which is never criticize a man until you've walked a mile in his moccasins. And I would say that Hillel, who says this in the Talmud, and also it is quoted, Jesus in the Christian scriptures, talk about love your neighbor as yourself. So that in many traditions, we have this sense of seeing the other, the divine in the other, loving the other as you would love yourself. So that's what we're going to do. We'll have a chance to talk a little bit about this after the meditation, but today's meditation will be a mindfulness meditation. So we'll be watching our thoughts. And So in some mindfulness meditation, there's a sense, the instructions are notice your thoughts and let them go. And I'm giving an intention, and as always, whatever you end up doing is what you do, and please don't judge yourself around it. But I invite you to notice your thoughts as they come and notice any judgments in them, judgments of yourself, maybe of how you're off and you're not meditating or you're not doing what you're supposed to, or judgments of others, stories that you're telling yourself. Maybe you're going to judge me about how much I'm talking. Um, so just noticing those, because we can't change anything until we notice it. And so that's the practice of mindfulness, gets us to that place of just noticing how we don't honor ourselves, noticing how we don't honor others. And then we can do the more challenging or maybe equally challenging work of, well, how do we want to be? Is this how we want to be? Um, and the chant that I'm bringing today is by a lovely Bay Area rabbi, colleague and friend, Rabbi Dorothy Richman. It's called Enough Room. And the intention is that there's enough room for all of us. And it seems to me that that's a way to honor um, the differences that we find and the different styles and the different ways that people are, and bring us back to a place of compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. So we'll do that, and we'll have some extended meditation time today. So we'll probably end up meditating for about 20 to 25 minutes. And again, as we're meditating, if your mind goes off and you do something else, come back to the breath, do a few cycles of breathing, and then noticing your thoughts. So we're not forcing the thoughts, we're actually using the breath, staying with the breath. Then thoughts are going to come up, and notice, is there judgment in those? Even judgment of, uh, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. I'm sure they'll come up while I meditate, though. So there we are. So I invite you to make yourself comfortable and sit in a way, and to make sure that you won't be disturbed. Listen to this chant, and if you on in your muted state, or on your in the stream or on the recording, if you want to chant along, the words are quite simple. There's enough room, there's enough room, there's enough room for all of us here. There's enough room, there's enough room, there's enough room for all of us here. There's enough time, there's enough time, there's enough time for all of us here. There's enough time, there's enough time, there's enough time for all of us here. There's enough love, there's enough love, there's enough love for all of us here. There's enough love, there's enough love, there's enough love for all of us here. There's enough blessing, there's enough blessing, there's enough blessing for all of us here. There's enough blessing, there's enough blessing, there's enough blessing for all of us here. There's enough room. There's enough room. There's enough room for all of us here. There's enough room. There's enough room. There's enough room for all of us here. For all of us here. So take a nice breath in, feeling your lungs fill up and expand, and exhale and let it go. Breathing in and receiving, and breathing out and then letting go, allowing your breath to have its own natural rhythm of receiving and releasing, feeling yourself connected to the life of the planet as you breathe in and breathe out. Noticing your body, the sits bones rooted down in your chair, sitting up, not overextending, but sitting nice and tall, honoring the body, not collapsing in, allowing the breath to flow more easily, and imagining with each breath the mind relaxing and softening like a pebble that's dropped into water, slowly descending down, and with it, letting go of thoughts, being more in the body and present, and pulling your awareness in, noticing anywhere in the body that may feel like it needs to move. It's now we're paying attention to the body. Maybe you need to stretch a little. At any time in the meditation, feel free to honor your body. Let me just take a few breaths in and out, imagining the front of the body softening, but the back of the body, the spine and the back being firm, holding us up. And so we move into a place of resting in our own thoughts, using the breath to relax and keep us present. And then when a thought arises, noticing it, noticing any judgment, and then letting that thought go, returning to the breath, breathing in and breathing out. And as thoughts arise, we get a chance to notice, are they honoring us? Are they honoring another? Or are they judging us or another? Just noticing them. You may notice an additional layer of judgment you have about even having that thought. Again, noticing and letting go, returning to the breath. And so we will practice together for the next 20 minutes in this way. If you get caught up in a long stream of story in your mind, when you realize it, simply come back to the breath, breathing in and receiving, breathing out and releasing, creating the spaciousness for those inner thoughts to arise in your awareness. And I'll ring a bell to remind us and let us know when it's time to come back. Breathing in and breathing out. Bringing the body back from that deeper level of consciousness. Breathing deeply into the lungs, wide into the lungs, deep into the lungs, into the belly. Letting it go. If we lost anybody because they fell asleep and you were meant to be, Hillary and I were exchanging texts this morning about that, and maybe she'll have something to say later in the Zoom. But if you're ready to come back, I have a little closing prayer for us before we say goodbye to those who are not in the Zoom and those who need to go. May the breath that flows in each of us allow us to notice and let go of any judgments of ourselves and others. May the divine flow bring love and kindness to us and to all. May loving kindness untie the judgmental knots in our spirits that we have to ourselves. May we see our connection to one another and turn away from judgments of others. And may the ground of all being support our inner and outer work. And so, as we prepare to finish this part, I'm gonna switch to gallery view so everybody can see everybody. And even if you're not showing your camera, you can see other people, and they can see your image. And Sarah made it. Yay! All the way. She had her COVID shot today. Yes, Sarah? So yeah, she was feeling a little under the weather, but we're very happy that she had her shot. So the way we like to end is to remember that we're all made in the image of the divine. And I see Catherine. I haven't seen Catherine for a long time. Good to see you from way down in the south. And so we say, B'Tselem Yah, you are made in the image of Yah, in the image of the divine, and may you hold with love and compassion and honor the journey that you're on, and with love and compassion appreciate that we all have judgments, and invite, well, however it is that they are being shown to you, to see what it is that you might want to release of judgments about yourself and judgment about others. And we say, B'Tselem Yah.